The cameras were rolling. World leaders filled the glossy Geneva studio. Spotlights reflected off polished shoe sand, expensive suits. Former U.S. President Barack Obama sat in the front row. Smiling faintly. He wasn't expecting works. Nobody was. Then the moderator tapped a mic and said, "Captain Ibrahim Traoré, Burkina Faso, your thoughts on the African future." The silence was sudden, the kind obsolescence that steals air from your lungs. Traoré stepped forward slowly, not in a rush. Dignified. Dressed in his olive green uniform, held like a warrior, but his eyes, they told another story. "My name is Captain Ibrahim Traoré," he said softly, "and I did not come here to shake hands. I came to speak for the dead, the broken, and the silenced." Whispers passed through the crowd. "For years," he continued, "we begged for partnerships. We were told to wait, but the only thing that came were bullets, debt, insolence. When we cried." Obama's smile faded. The studio dimmed, and then with fire in his voice, Traoré said, "Mr. Obama, you could have changed everything." Gasps. The next second, you could hear a pin drop. Barack Obama shifted in his seat. A camera zoomed in. He was blinking more than usual. Traoré didn't blink. He stared straight ahead, chest rising, breath slow. "I grew up listening to you," he said, voice steady. "When I was 16, I memorized the speeches. You made us believe we met hard, but while you spoke of hope, villages in Burkina Faso were burned, our youth starved, our gold stole. You knew, you saw." A tear welled in a woman's eye in Thicond Row. She wasn't African, but she felt it. Traoré reached into his pocket and pulled out a faded photograph. It showed a child, thin, barefoot, smiling with a cracked tooth. This boy's name was Boubacar. He wanted to be a doctor. A drone strike in Dead Thought Dream. He didn't even know who America was. Obama lowered his eyes. "I'm not here to disrespect you, Mr. President Traoré said, voice breaking for the first time. "But I need to ask, why did you turn away from us when one needed you most?" Obama looked up slowly, but said nothing. The world was watching. Camera lights flashed. The live broadcast beamed to over 40 countries. Twitter was already on fire. But in that room, there was only one thing that mattered. The eyes of two men. Barack Obama's lips parted slightly. He looked at Traoré like a man staring at a mirror. He didn't want to see thickened of reflection that burns. "I was told to believe in diplomacy," Traoré continued, softer now. "But how do negotiate with silence, with hunger, with graveyards?" The moderator tried to cut in Captain Traoré, but Obama raised his hand. "Let them finish." Traoré turned to the audience. "I buried more children than soldiers last year," he said. "And every time I ask for help, they say, 'We'll look into it, but we need sympathy. We need justice.'" He paused, then added, "We don't hate America. We just wonder why your love never reached us." And that's when, the pond, Obama's eyes glassed over. He reached for a handkerchief and wiped the corner of his eye. He wasn't crying for himself. He was crying for a truth he had ignored. And outside, across the world, millions of Africans felt seen for the first time. A single photo. Traoré held it in the air like a piece of Regio glass. The camera zoomed in. It showed a boy lying on a dirty hospital. His ribs stuck out. A fly perched on his cheek. His eyes wide open. Empty dot. "This child," Traoré said, "is named Isaka. He was 7. He died waiting for medicine that never came." The audience froze. Some leaned forward. Others looked away. Ashamed, Traoré's voice trembled, but not with fear, with fury. "Our gold built your skyscrapers. Our cocoa sweetened your our uranium powered your, but our children, they were left to rot." Obama's eyes were locked on the image. Traoré turned to him. "Tell me, Mr. President, did you ever ask why Africa never truly healed after colonialism? Or were our screams too far away to hear from the White House?" Obama's mouth opened slightly, then closed. A woman in the audience wept silently. Outside, social media exploded. Africa speaks. Isaka deserved better. But Traoré wasn't done. He carefully folded the photo, placed it in his jacket, and said, "I didn't come here to shame you. I came here to remind you that The world chose to forget. Barack Obama sat still, but something had changed in his eyes. Not pride, no politics pain, deep old pain buried under speeches, policies, handshakes. Now awakened, he slowly reached for his glass of water, but his hand trembled. Traoré stepped down from the podium and walked to the center of the room. His echoed. He turned to the global now. The world says Africa needs saving, but what we need is listening, respect, accountability. His voice dropped. I've walked through burnt villages. I've heard mothers scream into empty skies. And still the West sends lectures, not help. Obama's breathing grew heavier. Traoré looked at him gentler this time. I'm not your enemy, he said softly. Butu were our hope and we need you. Talk no. We remember everything. Suddenly, Obama stood. The moderator panicked. Mr. Obama. But Obama didn't leave. He stepped forward slowly. His voice cracked. I need to say something. A chill passed through the audience. Even Traoré seemed surprised. The former president looked at him with glassy eyes. You're right, Obama said quietly. You're absolutely right. GPs. The silence screamed louder than words. Obama took the mic. His hand still shook. I failed you, he said. No spin, no politics, just pain. I visited Africa 4 times during my presidency. I gave speeches, smiled for cameras, butin truth. I avoided the hard part. I didn't want to face the damage or thorough. We played in keeping Africa beneath surface. His voice cracked again. My father was Kenyan, but I never truly went back to understand his pain. I wore a suit. I played the game. I forgot cries from across the ocean. A single tear rolled down his cheek. I'm sorry, he whispered. Even Traoré's face softened just a little. The crowd didn't clap. They couldn't. Something deeper was happening. For the first time in history, the most powerful black leader of the West stood in front of an African revolutionary, apologized outside. Videos of the moment were flooding. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Teens across Africa shared the clip with finally, our pain is being heard. And inside the hall, Obama looked at Traoré and said, I can't undo the past, but I want to help repair what I ignored. The silence broke when Traoré asked just one question. How? Obama swallowed hard. The entire world was still watching. And then from the center of that massive studio, filled with presidents, diplomats, and press, Captain Ibrahim Traoré leaned forward and asked one word. How? It wasn't angry. It wasn't sarcastic. It was honest, heavy, real. Obama froze. Everyone did that. How? Traoré repeated. Do you plan to help repair a wound you refused to see for years? The cameras caught the sweat on Obama's. His silence wasn't just awkward. It was devastating because for all his speeches, all his legacies, he didn't save an answer. Finally, he whispered, I don't know. The room dropped into a painful quiet. Traoré didn't mock him, didn't smile, had nodded slowly. Then let me show you, he said. And then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn, folded piece of paper. This, he said, is a letter from a mother in Djibouti. She wrote it to the United Nations. It was never answered. Obama reached out to take it, but Traoré didn't let go. Not until you promised to actually read it. The world leaned in. Obama unfolded the paper slowly, as if it might fall apart. It was written in shaky French, with ink smudged from tears. Traoré translated lead, so the world could hear to Thousand power. I do not write to beg. I write back as my son died with his eyes open and I cannot close them. The room was frozen. He was 12. His name was Hamadou. He didn't die from bullets. He died waiting for food that was stolen. He died watching trucks pass our village with aid that never stopped. Obama stared at the page. They say Africa must rise. But how do we rise when our hands arided by loans? Our leaders trained by fear, and our children buried under silence. A sob broke from somewhere in the back row. If you see my son's face, remember had dreams. He wanted to become Adeker. He never hurt anyone. Why wash invisible to the world? Traoré stopped reading. The silence wasn't just emotional. It was sacred. Obama looked up, voice nearly gone. Where is she? No, he asked. Traoré didn't blink. She died last month, from hunger. Obama bowed his head. Obama sat back in his chair, the letter clutched and hishened like it weighed 100 pounds. He didn't speak. Not yet. The moderator, unsure what to do, glanced toward the production crew. Even they had tears in their eyes. The moment had spiraled far beyond politics. Traoré walked back to the podium and said nothing for a full 5 seconds. Then I didn't come here to win applause. I came because silence has killed more Africans than war. Obama finally looked up. Everything you've said, it's the truth, he admitted. And it's truth I never faced when I had power. Trey nodded. But you have power now. The power to listen. The power to speak honestly to those who once clapped while Africa bled. And then for the first time, Traoré's voice cracked. I carry the weight of my people every time I speak, every time I stand. Do you know what that feels like? Obama nodded slowly. I do now. A journalist in the crowd whispered to her colleague, this isn't a summit, this is a reckoning. Outside the building, crowds had gathered, young Africans watching on phones, cheering, crying. The world was shifting, and it wasn't over yet. Traoré reached beneath the podium and laid out something no one expected. A large folded map of Africa, not the one you said in classrooms, but one marked with scars. Red circles showed where children had hid, waiting for food. Black X's marked abandoned hospitals. Tiny flames pointed to gold mines run by foreign companies. This, Traoré said, is not a history lesson. It's a body count. He stared at the map. Each mark is a story the world ignored. Each dot was a cry for help. But help didn't come. Aid came with loans came with chains, and partnerships came with guns. Obama looked down at the map and whispered, my God. Traoré stepped forward. You see influence. We see graves. You see business. We see betrayal. Someone in the crowd began to cry. You say Africa is unstable, Trey continued. But you destabilized it. The weight after those words made everyone shift in their seats. And just when it felt too much to bear, Trey turned and said, Mr. President, do you want to help? Then stop looking at us from up high. Come down here. Feel what we feel. Obama stood up and stepped toward the map. The room held its breath. Obama walked out slowly, eyes locked on the map, and then Howard did the unthinkable. He knelt beside it. No script, no permission, not politics, just truth. Gasps echoed across the hall. Cameras clicked furiously. Even Trop looked stunned. Obama touched a red circle on the map. Where was this? He asked. Traoré answered softly. Tao, northern Burkina Faso. A school was bombed by mistake. 7 children died. Obama closed high. This isn't just about Africa. This is about the world finally learning how to listen. He looked up at Traoré. You've done what no one else did. You showed the pain, not the policy. The moderator tried to cut in, but the audience hushed him. Trey didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply said, the world only sees Africa when we're on, but we are more than tragedy. We're resilience. Obama stood again. I want to walk with you, he said, if you'll allow me. The tension shifted. Something worshiping, something honest, human. A Western leader was no longer standing above Africa. He was finally standing beside it, and the world saw it happen. Just when emotions reached their peak, Trey raised his hand. I need you all to hear something, he said. He pulled the ASML recorder from his pocket. The room lined, and no one knew what was coming. He pressed play. A woman's voice filled the hall, rasping, tired, full of heartbreak. She'd spoken the language. As her voice trembled, Cora translated in real time. To Tepperful, I speak for those who can't. My son was taken by men with 4 engines. They called it peacekeeping and never came back. A chill ran through Therum. We don't want pity. We want Tolif to dream, to not fear helicopters in the sky. The voice faded. Traoré put the recorder down gently. She passed away a week after sending that recording. No hospital, no medicine, just silence. Obama looked down. Trey stared into the cameras. How many more voices must fade before the world had us? On social media, millions were now watching live. Thousands began commenting. I'm crying. This broke me. Africa is speaking. The world must stand where and Trop. He stood tall, calm, but his hands were trembling as the applause faded in tussulence. Trop walked to the side off stage and placed a small empty wooden chair next to the speaker's row. He didn't explain. He just stood beside it. This chair, he finally said, belongs to the African child who never got the chance to speak here today. The room went still. This chair is for Aminata and Molly hoodied, giving birth on a clinic. Floor-best foreign companies drained our doctors away with better offers overseas. He placed a folded cloth over the seat. It's for Musa in Niger, who dropped out of school to mine gold. Gold that was shipped to Europe while his villagement in darkness. Obama wiped his eye again. And it's for the millions of African Afrikaners who were always present but never invited. Trop looked at the audience. We are not asking for pity. We are demanding more. One by one, people stood. Then Simeon whispered, we should never leave this chair empty again. And across Africa, young people screenshot that image and shared it, captioned, this is us. Just as the silence settled again, something unexpected happened. A Western diplomat, Ambassador Louise Carter of Canada, slowly stood from her seat. She cleared her throat. Her voice shook. Captain Traoré, she said. I came here today thinking I would listen to policy, but I ended up listening to pain. Traoré nodded, watching her closely. Carter continued for years. We sat at these tables, nodding, writing reports of Provium budgets, but never hearing stories like Aminata's. She looked around the room, and that makes us guilty. Not by action, but by indifference, people whispered. Some bowed their heads. The moment was breaking down walls. I can't undo what's been done, shedded, but I will return to Ottawa and fight for a new kind of aid. A partnership, not a leash. Applause started, small, then louder. Tr. Roar didn't smile, but his eyes softened. Thank you, he said. The healing begins when truth is no longer buried beneath diplomacy. Then someone in the crowd, a journalist from Ghana, stood and called out, what depends after this moment? Traoré turned slowly. That depends, he replied. Onwo decides to remember, and who decides to act? The world was no longer watching. It was listening. Barack Obama took a deep breath and returned to stage. His voice was low, steady. I once said, we are the change we've been waiting for. But truthfully, I was never brave enough to say what you just did. He turned to Trop. You spoke with the fire of a soldier, but with the soul of a father. True's jaw tightened. He didn't move. Obama continued. You've reminded me of something I forgot. The cost of silence. And I don't want to be remembered for what I built. I want to be remembered for what I changed. Then, with millions watching live, he looked into the camera and said to every African child who thinks the world forget them, I see you now and I'm sorry. Gasps, cries, a standing ovation began. But Traoré didn't move. Instead, he raised one finger and pointed to the empty chair. Obama understood. Some wounds don't close in one speech. And some memories must never fade. Outside of the forum, students were now gathering in the streets with candles. Across Nigeria, Ghana, Burkina Faso, people were glued to their screens. They weren't just watching history, they were becoming part of it. The room was still. Obama stepped away, sat down at the table, where dignitaries once bragged about progress, and quietly pulled an notepad from his folder. Without asking permission, he wrote. Everyone stared. The cameras zoomed in on his trembling hand, his brow furrowed, eyes glistening. After 2 minutes, he stood and returned to the stage. He handed the page to Captain Traoré. I wrote this, Obama said, not as a politician, but as a father. Traoré read gently, then aloud. To the child, if eld, I do not know your name, but I know your pain. I now see what I didn't. I can never make it right. But I will make sure the world never forgets. Yawel Gang. Traoré closed the letter slowly. Obama's hands were shaking. Traoré looked at him, and for the first time nodded. A single gesture, not of forgiveness, but of truth shared. The forum was nearly over, but no one moved. Captain Traoré turned to the global audience, now in the hundreds of millions. I want to end this moment, he said softly, with the promise to theme others still waiting. He raised a photograph. 5 women sitting outside Asmel Health Center in Kaya, Burkina Faso, eyes tired, faces carved by years of waiting. They don't want speeches. They don't want pity. They want their sons back, their daughters alive, their dignity restored. A soft gasp echoed through the crowd. Then Traoré said, "From this day, Burkina Faso will no longer beg for help. We will build our future with hands blistered by truth. But we will welcome any who come with open hands, not closed fists." Obama stood beside him. He didn't interrupt. He simply bowed his head. One by one, the global leaders followed, even those who once looked down in Africa. And somewhere, in the dusty corner of a rural school, a child watched on a cracked phone and whispered, "We matter now." The form ended, but no one left. Instead, a soft rhythm began. Slow claps from the African youth in the gallery, then tears, then chants, "Traoré, Traoré." But he didn't raise his fist. He walked toward the small wooden chair he had placed on stage, the symbol of Africa's unheard. Gently, with both hands, he lifted it and walked down the aisle in silence. Obama followed behind him, no longer the center, just a witness to a moment would never forget. The cameras followed them through theaters into the Geneva sunlight, and as they walked, thousands of people outside full, silent, they made way. The empty chair passed between them, and for the first time in a long, long time, Africa and the world followed. If this story touched you, if your heart broke for the unheard, if your eyes welled with tears for every child Africa lost in silence, then don't scroll past. Like this video, not for me, but for those mothers who still wait. Comment below, "I hear Africa now," and subscribe because this channel tells a story the world tries to forget. Help us make sure that chair is never empty again.